how do you get to be consistent when it comes to being productive? What I mean is, we plan a lot of things, like we are going to do that every day. We tell ourselves, we tell one another, but then when it comes down to it, do we actually do it? Now, earlier this week, I had a group training, the group coaching training, and I used one of the modules from CHPC, Certified High Performance Coaching, which is taught by Brendon Burchard, and it has to do with productivity. Now, I've learned a thing or two about productivity, so most things that are on those sheets are actually very familiar to me, but being familiar with things doesn't necessarily mean that you actually do them. So I wrote down a number of things today which I want to get into when it comes to being productive. Now, I didn't necessarily go and look at the module from Brendon. As a matter of fact, I wrote things down based on what I did earlier this week. So on Friday Night Live, I always look back on what have I been doing. And based on that, I wrote down a few things. And first thing that I want to start with is, if you want to be productive, do you have something scheduled on your calendar? And for me, the difference is between I know my appointments, so they are scheduled, versus I want to do something, but I'm not sure how, where, and when. So a lot of things are revolving around my physical therapy appointments. Now, at the moment, 2 out of 3 are on holiday, which means that things are a little bit different compared to normal. But still, I would say that it leaves certain blocks of time to do other stuff. So depending on what's happening and how much time I've got, I usually go downtown, which I actually haven't been doing this week because I had some appointments at hospitals, if correct. But otherwise, I go and get some work done. That's one of the reasons why I go downtown and do certain stuff. Now, the other things I do is, I know that I want to post something every day on Instagram, which I do usually before I go to sleep. And then there are the Monday motivational messages. Usually I start to think about those during the weekends, but yes, sometimes things happen the same day, and I want to write about that part. And then there is the Friday Night Live. And, well, I do have a time in mind, but every once in a while it becomes later. I think it's more the norm that it's later than earlier, later than the time that I've got in my mind. And that's okay. What this is about is not so much about when you are doing it, but that you are doing it. So if you say, I'm going to do this, that you actually also am going to do this, instead of saying, well, I was planning on, but now I'm too tired and other things are distracting me. Even when you are tired or when things are distracting you, that shouldn't be the reason not to do it. And when you know you're going to do it, it makes all the difference. So, of course, I also have my appointments for the group coaching. And sometimes I might change the schedule a little bit depending on who is in the group. And the same applies to talking to my coaching clients. So some are random. Those people exist. And then you have more fixed times. So one, for instance, is scheduled straight after the physical therapist on Friday. So usually I'll go through the physical therapist and then I'll drive on because this is one which is local. And well, I basically guide her. So it's more than just coaching, a little bit more hands-on. And it's not just about what are you going to do, but it's more involved. That's the nice thing about doing the local stuff here. And then of course there are other appointments and schedules. This week and last week, for instance, I went to a camping and nature camping. No, not what you might be thinking. It's not nothing to do with how we are dressed. It has everything to do with what's around. So what are the basic necessities which you can use? And yes, they actually do have electricity. So, and they have showers too. But anyway, apart from that, it's going there. I was asked to come and drop by, and well, when one of the kids asked me to come, I just go do it. So I went last Thursday and the week before, and the week before they said, "Can you come again next Thursday?" So normally I see them once a week at least, but then it's only like 10 minutes driving, well, 15 minutes, depends on what time it is during the day. So it's somewhere between 12 and 18 minutes. And this was an hour and a half. So big difference. But I do use the time to actually get motivated and to experience momentum. So this week, I've been listening a couple of times to a podcast live from Mel Abrahams. So when you go to Growth Day from Brendon Burchard, if you want to join, let me know. I'll send you the link. Then there are several guests on Growth Day. So basically they're friends from Brendon's, and each have their own expertise. And well, I know Mel from helping me out whenever I would go there, especially when I couldn't stand for a long time because I could only stand on a foot and a few toes. So it was kind of like, hey, hang on. I know that Mel is following Brendon, but he is actually talking on stage. So I had seen him on the app multiple times, but I had no clue whatsoever that actually the guy was also teaching us. So the same guy who was taking care of Brendon and also taking care of me when I needed it was also teaching. Now, he's got some very wise things to say, which are related to finances. Now, what you need to know is that besides finances, that he occasionally also talks about being a cancer survivor. And one of the things that he talks about is he wasn't ready to die. He wasn't ready to give up on life. And that's why he fought. And well, he won. He's still around, so that's good. And that one thing about I'm not ready to give up just yet, that tells a lot about where you are in life. It tells you a whole bunch of things about your why and where you want to go. And when we talk about productivity, we are basically talking about that very same thing. Because when it comes back to motivations, whether we are talking about finances or we are talking about productivity, it's about doing something because we want to accomplish something. There's something that we want to do. And the question, of course, is that why big enough to actually get going? Now, to get back to the first thing, if we really want to, then we have things scheduled. That's what we mean with block time. And on one hand, I like to know what to expect and what I have in my calendar. But on the other hand, I also like it when nothing has been planned, so I can actually go do things which I want to do. And the question, of course, is if I have the time on my hands, what am I doing? And for me, it depends on a number of things, including what do other people want from me. Although it's actually an exception that I would go to a camping to hang out with friends. And well, it partially it has to do with already seeing them weekly because I like to brainstorm with the mom who has been a long-time friend. And partially it is because of the kids. It's that simple. It's hard to say no to them because they're so enthusiastic and I love seeing them. So they're 7 and almost 10, so they have this adorable age where you can actually do stuff with them and they appreciate what you're doing and they can be so enthusiastic. So yeah, it's if they come, can you please come? Then yeah, there's a huge chance that I'll come. And of course, I've taken it into consideration. Now, like I said, the next question, of course, is, but if I have the time, what do I do? Now, if I'm already going somewhere, say to the physical therapist or going to the hospital or wherever it is, and I'm already driving, then chances are that I'll drive on to a place where I actually can sit down. Uh, Partially because I will get in a traffic jam most of the time on my way back, sometimes also on my way over, but also because I'm already up and running and then it's nice to actually continue on and go do stuff. And especially when I'm on the road, there are so many places I can go to, especially when it's still daytime or early evening. So here in the Netherlands, we don't have restaurants or places we can go to 24/7. Sure, you can go through the drive-through in the Mac, but that's not what I mean when I talk about sitting down and actually, doing some work. It's one of the things that I actually love about the place, which is called Denny's in the US. And I know that prior to COVID, there were more places that were actually open 24/7. A number of them have closed ever since. But that feeling of being able to go where I want to, when I want to, and then just sit down when it's relatively quiet, that's nice. It makes me think about certain things. Now, when does that work best? Apart from the appointments, well, actually, when I am already thinking about something. So, like I said, I've been listening to the training from Mel Abrahams. And, well, he was talking about finances, how to look at it, about emotions, and also about what we relate to money. So then it comes to mindset and what we tell ourselves because of what we've been told. And guess what? Those same things still apply to productivity. Well, actually, to just about anything we do, especially mindsets and what we heard when we were growing up. And when it comes to emotions, and it was kind of funny what he said. He said, there shouldn't be any emotions around money. Money itself is just a thing. But it's like, what are the experiences when it comes to money? And I can tell you, I've had some conflicting advice growing up. And one of the things that I never learned was to save money. Money was saved just to spend it straight away, basically. And, my mom was a champ. When I wanted a new record, then I would get the money ahead of time and then I would pay it back in the next 10 weeks. So I love that system. I'm not sure if it's the best system nowadays, but yes. Also, one of the things that I did when it came to finances was like, oh, I know that other people, they earn a little bit less than I do. So when I saw that difference, I would say, I'll treat you. And it's always nice to also see it the other way around. People who earn a lot more than I do, to say every once in a while, you know what, I'll pay for you. So, there's a certain balance when it comes to those things. So, getting back to emotions, mindsets, planning. So, the whole planning, whether you are going to plan or not, also has to do with mindsets. So, like I said, I don't like to be too fixed when it comes to appointments. It makes me like, hey, I can't move anymore. I want some time to, when it's needed, to lay down when I'm tired. I want some time to actually go places and do some writing, record some videos. But I also know that there is a downfall when it comes to distractions. I've got an ADHD brain. So I'm chaotic, I'm hyper, and I'm very creative. And that means that I usually cannot let go when it comes to being hyper focused and move on to the next thing. So there's a lot of discussion going on in my mind, usually to get moving or get going. Whereas when I have fixed appointments, then it's like, oh, oh. So I know ahead of time that I need to go prepare for that meeting. And sometimes that means I need to do and think about frameworks. Sometimes it's just about getting ready and getting the right stuff to go with me. Like, for instance, when I go to the physical therapist, it's not just about bringing my wallet. So I can do whatever I need to do. But if I want to go to a terrace or wherever and want to write, then I want to have my iPad with me and my notebook, and of course pencils. And if I go, for instance, for a walk, or I go, like for instance, hang out with the kiddos, then I need my chargers. So depending on what I'm doing, I like to be prepared. Also, when it comes to food, do I have enough beverages with me? Do I have something of substance, preferably with protein in there? So I won't all of a sudden get hungry. And you can say, well, you were going to terrace, weren't you? Yeah, but I also need to get there. And sometimes that takes a lot of time before I'm actually there, depending on what's going on. And I cannot eat everything anywhere anyway. So, so medication is part of it. I also need to be aware that I do take my medication with me. So when you know what you're going to do, when you have planned out, you can also prepare. Now, preparation is not just about what am I going to do? What am I going to take with me? It's not just about what am I going to do, as in this case with my life, going to talk about. It's about more. It's a mental preparation that you are going to go from one activity into another. And for me, saying it like this, I realize, yeah, it's actually making a transformation. It's about making a shift. And I might be focused on what I'm going to do. It's just that the transformation time, that shift, well, it could be a little bit clearer on my part. That's one thing that's for certain. And those who know me, they will say, yeah, that's correct. We know she needs to take more time for those things. So one of the things, of course, that you can do when it comes to short reminders, short time reminders, short timers, are like alarms on the phone, which already help you. So I actually have like this calendar app, which I can view ahead of time. So usually I look at it at the beginning or the week of the week, well, actually before the week starts. And then also I'll check it before I go to sleep, that I'm sure that I know which appointments I have. So for me, what works best is actually knowing which appointment I have at what time. So I ask people, please put me down on the same time, because that works a lot better. Now, of course, with 2 out of 3 of my physical therapists on holiday, that's a little bit of a mess. It comes down to days which are shifting, but also the times. And we're also trying out something which is not entirely convenient because it's a holiday now, but I want to figure out if certain times are easier for me when it comes to traffic. I don't know just yet, but we are going to see. Now, I also know, and this might seem off topic, but for me it's very important, that whenever I, hang on for a sec, you might think, what is she doing? But I actually have the air conditioning on, which is good, because I was a little, not just tired, but I had a bit of a headache. And normally I turn it off because it's right above me. But now I was like, oh, it's actually kind of nice, the fresh air blowing on my head. But this always needs a little bit of protection. So that's why I'm putting it on. So talking about this, and then I'm not talking about the protection per se, but I am talking about the physical circumstances. It does happen that I'm very tired, especially on days like Sunday or Monday. Yeah, usually Monday. So on Monday, I have my Monday motivational message. Apart from my Instagram posts, which means that I record a video. I usually also post that video to YouTube. So it's slightly different when it's on my blog post versus when it's on YouTube, because on YouTube there's a little something that refers to, if you want to see on, then go there. Now, I'll honestly say that step go there, I usually forget that part. Not the moment that I upload it, it's there, but then I have to do something else after the uploading. And that is something that I have to do like the next day, which is actually put a little thumbnail in there and make sure that at the right time it's there. And then, you know, okay, I can click on there, or there's like a list where you can go to. Now, this is one of those things that I know I need to do, but I haven't scheduled it, which usually means that I completely forget about it. Like I said, I've got a very chaotic mind. And in order to be systematic, I really need to put things down. So I'm learning it as I go. I mean, I never would have thought that since December 1st last year, I would be posting daily on Instagram, and yet I've done it, So also when it comes to doing Spanish, I've been doing it for over 2 years on a daily basis. And yes, we are fortunate enough to have streak freezes. So it happens every now and then that it's after midnight that I realize that the day is already over and I should have done it before midnight. So yes, I do it every day. But sometimes, especially like a day as today. So on Fridays, I usually go to the physical therapist. Today, the physical therapist had to go to the dentist. And like I said, the other two, they are somewhere in Indonesia having a great time. That's at least what I assume. So I didn't have to go there. And normally I would go see a client. She said not today, so I didn't do so. And the result was that the only thing I basically did was making sure to get groceries. I really had to get some groceries done, make sure that the cat was being fed. And so we have sort of a system who actually does it depending on what we are doing during the day and during the evening. But Friday is pretty much my thing. And then, it's feeding the cat, playing drums, then another round of medication for the cat. And, there are other things that I do in between. I might be doing laundry, and of course I'll take a shower straight after playing drums, since, I'm kind of sweaty. And then, it's time to get to work again. So I start working after midnight. So by the time that I'm behind the kid, I'm basically already thinking about certain things which are related to the Friday Night Live. And that makes sense, and it does not make sense when I'm too distracted. I can tell, because when I'm repeating something and I'm still learning it, I'm off. And then I'm like, oh yeah, my mind was going someplace else, which made sense. But when it's just about speeding up and I already know what I need to do, then it gives me the possibility, because then we're talking about repetition and sort of boredom, to let the mind wander around about certain things. And having gone to the hospital yesterday, and no, I don't go there because something weird is happening. I go there to figure some things out about how my body works. I was literally thinking about, okay, so in 3 weeks, I'm going to have these things, these wires, and these little, well, I don't know what you call them, but they register all the stuff, and so they're like little hard drives, I guess, which get attached. But the thing is, they're going to put it on in the hospital, and then I'll be going to the physical therapist. She doesn't know it yet, but every once in a while we are boxing. So I want to ask her to do the boxing with me. Why? Because I get really out of breath and my heart rate goes way up. And that's the one thing that we actually want to monitor. So after that, like I said, I'll be going straight to the client. Then I'll be going to the house in between grocery shopping. Then, like I said, playing drums. And, well, then it's preparing for the live here and actually doing it, and hopefully in between not falling asleep. And sometimes, yeah, I do need some sleep to be energized enough to, talk about certain things. And one of the things is I always want to prepare somewhat, to figure out, like, okay, what do I want to get across? Do I have like something like a framework, a list with questions or steps, things that I can talk about that really works best when it comes to things. Now, that's a long first step that I've been talking about when it comes to planning and actually knowing when you're going to do stuff. And, well, like I said, one for me is linked to the other. And days like these, I'm actually kind of happy that when I don't have to do all those things during the day, because that makes it a little bit more relaxed for what comes after. Because the playing drums is something I do consistently on Fridays. It's easier when everybody is gone. So, but the Friday Night Live, of course, is also something I do consistently. And for me to make it a little bit easier, I look back on the week. But today, especially after listening to that video, that live from Mel, multiple times now, it got stuck. It got stuck, and I was like, yeah, I want to do something more with it. And hence why I wanted to talk about productivity, also combined with giving group training about it. Now, let me just go to the second point that makes things a little bit easier. And well, we've talked about reminders, of course, planning things, about triggers. So a trigger can be, for instance, this tattoo on my hand that's meant as a trigger. It could also be something that I actually bought this recently. And for some, they might understand what this is. So if you look at my Instagram, then there's a post where you actually can see a semicircle too. And well, it refers to a bridge and it refers to a stage. And I was like, well, actually, this is a nice thing. I can take it with me. There's also some writing on there. So I was like, okay, just the more the merrier. That doesn't, of course, mean that I have to give into it, listen to it. But that brings me to the why we want to do it. So I already talked a little bit about the why. So my why has to do with wanting to leave legacy so people can speak up and speak out, be understood, be heard, seen, valued, respected. And of course, that works both ways. And I believe that if we can change communication one step at a time with one person at a time, that it also reflects on other people. And well, depending on what your relationships are, we are talking about spouses, we are talking about children, we might be talking about co-workers, we might be talking about employees. If you are someone who is working, I'm not entirely sure how much you can influence the managers and the bosses above you. Depends on how open they are. But, if people are open to criticism, then of course they will learn too. And well, then of course the question, of course, is how much do we believe in ourselves when it comes to getting that message out there? Well, I totally believe that it's so important to be heard, seen, and understood. And I know it firsthand. And when I'm talking about not being heard and not being seen, I just take your pick, whether it's at school, whether it's by the teachers. And when I mean at school, it was my fellow students. Well, actually, we were at a grade school and elementary school. So, we were still kids. But, being bullied, of course, has its imprints. And especially when, without knowing, they try to kill you, which they actually did. It sounds so dramatic when I say it, but it is what it is. So, but like I said, teachers, do they listen to you? And that's why I have this interest in neurodiversity, because people who are neurodivergent, usually you can say that those are the people who are visual thinkers, creative thinkers, instead of the ones who work with words. But it has to do with, do you see multiple opportunities, or what people say is what you hear? And there's only one explanation possible for you. Well, with neurodivergence, there are usually more than one possibilities when it comes to what they get across. And if they don't know what you mean, then they usually take their own pick, which can be quite different from what it is that you actually meant. Now, when getting back to how you feel about yourself and how much you believe in yourself, Well, I heard my fair share of things growing up as well. And of course, they've had their impact on me still. I mean, I'm over half a century old and still it has its effect on me. And that's why it's so important to actually write those things down. Because if you don't really believe in what you're doing, then why should you start working at it? Why should you put effort in it if nothing is going to happen anyway? So you want to know what your mindset is, what your thoughts are, how important you deem things. So is it more important to play with other people online versus doing stuff and getting your message out there to other people? So in my case, I was somewhat distracted because people were playing Pokemon, and apparently there are some specific raids going on right now, and the people in the US and in Hawaii actually they were coming on, and oh my god, some of them are so quick. So before you think about it, it's like being drawn in there. Oh, someone is laughing. The moment that I talk about Pokemon Go, then she goes like, oh, she knows. um and then it's up to me to say, okay, this is not one raid, it's going one after another and after another after another. So normally you have like 5-day passes, and today we have like 20. So the trick is, what can I do not to be too distracted? So I can give into it for a little while, but at some point, like today, it's like, knock knock, weren't you going to do a Friday Night Live? So during the rating, I was absolutely aware about the Friday Night Live. Part of me was also like, well, I do want some of those specific Pokemons which they are rating for. And I was like, okay, so I'll give myself the chance to do it. There's no one specifically waiting for me at this time. What I've learned is that most people actually watch it the next day. So it's about getting it out there, but I didn't want to do it too late. So at some point I was like, okay. Now, there is one thing that you really need to be aware of. So when we talk about doing certain things, it's nice. It sounds like a good idea or a possible idea to be postponing stuff. But what I've learned during the years is that when you start postponing things, things can happen, whether it's fatigue, a headache. Yes, I got a headache today, and I'm still so happy that the cold air is blowing over my head. It makes all the difference. But I also have experienced things like not having a voice anymore. Yeah, happens too on my end. And having dealt with that a few times, especially during challenges, I've learned to not postpone what I can do right now. So if you want to do certain things, you want a little bit of extra time in case something happens, but you don't want to postpone it too much, or if it's possible, not postpone it at all and just go do it. And, you know, there are far less excuses and far less battles when it comes to doing things straight away versus, I can wait like an hour or another hour or whatever it is. And well, right now, Chicky Joe is watching too, which I think is very cool. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but actually, Chicky Joe and I, we love going live together. But she has a very hectic life compared to my life. And so, whereas I can schedule certain things, yeah, the air conditioning is getting a little bit more active. So, things are happening around me. So, where I can plan things because I don't have to take children or grandchildren into consideration, for her, it's a little bit different. So, I love it when she's there. I'm so happy that she's there right now. And I know that at some point she will comment. And, that makes it a little bit different. And, I can do my live without knowing that someone is actually watching. But I do love it when she's actually there or other people are actually there. And there are some comments I can get into. But like I said, it's when we get back to the whole planning and also what's going on around you, distractions, then the question of course is, how important is it? Well, it's going live Friday Night Live with Lady Lexi. It's not Friday Night Live with Cheeky Joe. It's not Friday Live with Lady Lexi and Cheeky Joe. And again, I would love it if it were to be like that. But the moment that it would be going live, Friday Night Live with Lady Lexi and Cheeky Joe, of course, that would mean that she has to fix a certain time block. And the question, of course, is, can you do it with your life? And yes, she says, yes, it's been hard recently. So much going on. I miss being live with you. Yeah, I know. We have so much fun when we are together. So she lives on the other side of the ocean. It sounds further than it actually is. It's only a few hours from here. But yes, it's still, we don't see one another every day. Actually, we see one another maybe like once a year and then for a longer period of time, which is kind of nice. And it's nice to be on the phone and talking to one another. And, those moments when I'm talking about something and she gets into certain things and she is posting on Instagram and I respond to it, that makes such a difference. And she says, yes, I love it. We have so much fun. And that's absolutely true. Now, when I talked about energy, going back and forth with people in, of course, a positive manner, it can make all the difference. And like I said, I've learned to summon the energy because I can imagine that someone is actually watching, because I know someone will be watching later on. But it does make all the difference when I am prepared. Now, we talked about planning things, and now I want to look at it from a different angle. So this is how to start doing something which you want to do on a regular basis. Well, of course, it starts with the whole planning. It starts with the why. We also talked about the why. And I wanted to say the starting up is not the most difficult thing. Actually, it's continuing on what's the most difficult thing. And that's true. But actually doing something for the first time isn't always that easy either. It's new, it's unfamiliar. So what do you have to take in consideration? So it's nice to actually be able to do a dry run, so a practice session, talk about other people, or talk with other people about what you're going to say. And one of the things that I always tell people, well, actually, there are two things. The first one is talk to others, find support. And so you already know things. The second would actually be related to the first one, which is write things down. But the other thing, which then basically is the third thing, has to do with visualize what you're going to do. So it's less scary. Now, I don't have a problem with actually talking to people and talking in front of camera, but I do want it to make sense. So hence preparing and knowing what I'm talking about. I also want it to be of value for you. So I expect Cheeky Joe to tell me when I'm off base and when she's like, where is she going? What's this? And well, I don't think that actually happened quite a lot. I actually rarely have read anything from her when it comes to being there when I'm live. But, you know, it makes all the difference when you're prepared. But that's what I talked about too. Now, we talked about the distractions. And now let's go into that second thing which I said. And she says, I still find it hard to speak to people. Yes, you do. That's why I do most of the talking of, when it comes to the two of us. But one thing, when you have kids and you have grandkids, you need to learn to speak up. So, and, especially when we are hanging out together, it's funny. Well, it has nothing to do with funny, but I always, this is sort of like an expression of mine. But what I've noticed is when people are around me, and that mostly applies, of course, also for the coaching clients, is they observe what I'm doing, and then at some point they are going to do it too. And because I have no problem talking to other people, then at some point they are going to do the same thing. Now, when it comes to Cheeky Joe and well, both of us, we can go head to head, especially when playing games. I know by now what to expect. So, but it makes it interesting. It makes it interesting when you can actually hear why certain things are different and thought of, or when you can see things from a different perspective. So she says that she's more confident with me, and that's absolutely true. And also the moment that she's alone and not with me, as a result from having done certain things, I can just see the level of confidence going up. And I also see it in my clients, which is a very good thing. So when we talk about how to keep on going, so you have something in mind, you start doing it. And like I said, I've been posting something on Instagram since December 1st. So over half a year now, over 1,000 days. No, not 1,000 days, 200 days. That's a lot. That's because the Spanish, which is over 900 days. Which is over 2 years. But because of the number of days that I've been doing this, it has become so normal that I know, and it doesn't take much time. But when it comes to other things, I listen to, for instance, what Brendon Burchard says, or what a person like Mel says, or someone else, or Evan Carmichael, and I just let it sink in, and then I'm like, okay, how can I change this? And it's whenever I come with a different question, especially when I'm talking to my coach, it's as if he gets back to it and then gets into it again, and then I'm like, okay. And that's why when Mel talked about the mindsets and believing in ourselves, which Brendon actually did too, I realized like how important it is to write those things down, to actually acknowledge like, oh, this doesn't sit well with me. If we want to change our mindsets, then we need to be not just aware of it, but actually change it. So we need to write them down and then literally change them to something positive. Now, I've got a worksheet which actually does exactly that, going from negative beliefs to positive beliefs. And if you want it, you have to go to ladylexi.com, sign up for change. So I'll just tell you, there's a worksheet, but you need to ask for it. So it's doing things, taking that first step that actually already makes a lot of difference. Now, what's Jo saying? She says, when I post on my page, many people think I'm really confident, but I'm not. Yeah, that's a funny thing, because if you are someone who reads between the lines, then you can actually tell what's going on. I think we've got a spam bot going on because all of a sudden we have a lot of viewers here, and we have double the amount of viewers now, and we still only have one person who's commenting. So I'm not sure what's going on, but doesn't look good. Numbers are going up a little bit too fast. Yes, I've got an IT background, and I also needed to be aware in the data centers, in the computer centers, what was going on. So I'm always a little bit on edge when I see certain things, and there they go down. So still too many people at the same time, and unless everybody has woken up, I wouldn't know why only one person is responding. So getting back to the whole believing in things, because I do believe that when it comes to the core of it all, it comes down to, do you really stand behind what it is that you want to do every day? So for Cheeky Joe, I got to know her because she posts daily on a page which is about Jason Begay. And well, she writes a lot about him. So he's an actor, and he plays in this series called Chicago PD. And because I wanted to know some things, I got to read about what she posted, and that's how I could tell that something was going on. I literally could tell by the way she wrote things down. Now, I've been following her for a year or 2 years. Yeah, we've been to Chicago twice now. So yeah, that's probably close to 2 years. And it's so cool to see how she has evolved. And I'm not only talking about writing, but also about how she creates the pictures, how she edits them, how she takes moments, she literally searches on the net what she can find. And of course, all of us, you don't have the time to do so, but still want to know, we are like, yay! But it's more than just gathering the information. It's so cool, the edits that she makes. These could be like posters for sale. And she says in the 2 years. So, and seeing how someone changes because they do it like on a daily basis, that makes all the difference. When you look at my Instagram page, you also see a lot of changes. And lately, one of the things that I've been doing is I once started doing a checkerboard, and then someone said, well, it doesn't really matter if you do it or not. And then I decided to reintroduce the checkerboard again. And I'm so happy that I've done it. I think it looks cool. And so one tile is basically like a statement or something. And then the next tile is like either a bunch of pictures or it's like a video. So depending on what I feel like, I will record a video. And sometimes, like this week, I didn't really feel like recording videos. I was a little too tired to actually do it. And I had some pictures. So I was like, you know what? Instead of recording the video, I'll just type what I'm thinking and what I mean when posting this. So what is she saying? I love your character on your page. She's so cool with blue hair. Yeah. So there's a story behind the pinup. It's actually pinup, what you see over there. One of my clients made it for me. And well, you cannot see really well that I've got blue hair because I chose not to bleach it. It's well, they say it's one shade lighter than black. And well, I'm using this dark blue shampoo, this color. And well, where it's getting gray, it actually has one advantage because then you can see actually the blue color pop out. And as for the blue on this, you actually only see it when I'm standing in the sunlight. But this pinup represents me. So yeah, there are the tattoos of the swallows, which she actually put on there too. That same client, she's holding a crutch, which relates to, um, well, actually, it's not been that long that I haven't been using crutches anymore. And I just thought about it that like a year ago, I stopped using, well, I actually had to go back on crutches. And this weekend, I went on my bike. I was cycling to the beach, one of the beaches, and it went pretty well. And I didn't have a problem when I actually got off my bike and had to walk the last part uphill. So that makes a huge difference. So for those who are wondering what is she holding, well, she's holding a crutch, and we don't use um, armpit crutches. I don't know if you call it. We use elbow crutches. So that's what she's holding. Then of course there's an earpiece in there, and well, I would wish I would have that figure. It's so cool, but that's why it's a pinup. Anyway, she's wearing gloves. I used to be wearing gloves too, all the time. In the winter, I do. In autumn and spring, I still do. And sometimes I also have to do it in summer. So, for instance, when playing drums, I do use gloves too, because apparently I'm allergic to the wooden sticks. That's welcome to my life. Now, we've talked about distractions, and you know, when I'm going live like today, I'm so happy that I actually write things down, because on one hand, I love talking to Cheeky Doe and seeing her comments on there, but I also have something in mind that I want to get across, right? So it's nice to actually have something written down when it comes to those things. Now, most of it I've actually talked about. So it's about how to get started. So that first time around, then actually doing it again and again and again. So like I said, I've been posting on Instagram daily since December 1st. Well, Cheeky Joe has been doing it for over 2 years. So, you know, those things are very important, that we have a routine, we have a rhythm, that we know, okay, this is what's expected from us. But you, of course, need to develop that rhythm. And maybe that's one of the hardest things. And then, of course, and I'll keep saying this, it's so important to believe in what you're doing. So you need to know your why. Why are you doing it? But you also need to believe in the message you're getting across. Because if you don't believe it has any use, then why should you go on? Now, Evan Carmichael said this thing, and that really has helped me, especially with the earlier videos. He said, there's always someone who needs to hear your message. You might know it, but someone out there needs to hear it. So that immensely helped me with recording my videos. So what did she say? I love how you remember what you're talking about. I would be terrible and forget everything I meant to say. Well, you know, part of it is writing things down. And I'll honestly say what made a huge difference, and that's something that I didn't really talk about, but I did want to talk about it, is well, it comes out differently than I mean to. I don't know if you've noticed this, but compared to over half a year ago, when I would be talking, I would go in a certain direction. Like I said, I'm chaotic. And then all of a sudden, I wouldn't know where I started. Well, that's actually been true for most of my life. Ask me something on the spot, I won't be able to tell you when it comes to certain names. I've learned to let go of the stress which I experience when people want an answer immediately about something. say, for instance, about the name of medications or certain people. So I might see their face, I might see the colors of the product, or when we talk about people, what they look like, how they act, but I might not be able to actually say their name. Again, has to do with the visual thinking and all. So words are not as important as the image actually is. So because I think a little bit differently, it's training the brain to actually get back to your, okay, where was I? Now, when it comes to certain things, so I know that my speech pattern or my thought pattern, better said, has a mind of its own. So sometimes I just go, all those different directions. And ever since I started using certain supplements, the omega oil, pure omega oil supplements, things have changed. And I think it was noticeable within a couple of weeks after I started using it, which is apparently the exception, but it's the way it is. And what I wanted to say is I talked to this person this week. So we had a short Zoom call while I was at that camping, remember, with that friend and her kids. And she was on there together with a colleague, a partner, business partner. And, she is the person who says, oh, well, when you meet someone, tell them we're going to make an appointment and then we're going to get there. And I'm like, whoa, isn't that a little bit too quick? But, that's about being assertive. And I'm like, when I get to talk about people and I can show them certain things, that's okay. But actually getting in their face and saying, we need to make an appointment right now. I want your phone number and everything. Exchanging info like, hey, if you want to, go find me on Facebook or on Instagram, that's a whole bit different ball game. But getting people to sign up and register straight away, oh no. So what Jiki Joe says, my brain fog is gone. That's so true. So by the time it is there, and occasionally it does pop up again, it's usually because I'm tired or something is going on. But what I wanted to get across is, there are people who are very assertive. They immediately do certain things. And when it comes to certain appointments, like meeting up with people, scheduling certain things. So if you're already in agreement that you're going to do like these weekly meetings, then I'm probably one of the first people to actually schedule it or take pictures, make like a group in whatever app I'll be using. And people like that. So a lot of people talk about it, but they don't do it. I'm one of those people who actually does it. But, and I'll say this honestly, when I'm the one who has to do it all, I'll at some point stop doing it altogether. So, and then we get back to the beliefs and the why. And my belief at such a moment is, oh, they don't care enough. It's not important enough for them. Or I explicitly hear that they don't have the time, which also means that it's not important enough. Doesn't mean it's not important. It's not important enough. And then I'm like, okay, I'll let go. And, when the time is there, we get back together again. Now, what else? I think I've got most of it. So the one thing that I circled was the belief in yourself and the outcome. Now, talking about that part, it's so important to have those reminders on a daily basis. You can set your alarm, for instance, in your phone with little reminders and little clues. I showed you, well, Jiki Joe didn't see it, but she's going to recognize it when she does see it. She would be the first to know what this would mean. And if you don't know, then I'm going to say shame on you. So there's also some text on it. And it says, today is your day, which I think is kind of cool. And well, today's my day is basically a choice. Am I going to make it my day or not? So am I going to work on something or not? And then we get back to motivation. So part of it is creating momentum, blocking time, saying I'm going to do this on this day. Is, it's about agreements, about appointments, but it's also about creating momentum because you are going to do it. But when it comes to saying I'm going to do it, thinking I'm going to do it, and actually going to do it, well, that's a whole different ball game. And well, I think I've done other, well, I know I've done other videos about it, but bottom line, it comes down to, does your brain believe you? If you don't talk to yourself, you don't write down what's going on in your mind, there's no one to talk to and brainstorm with, as on the phone, for instance, or on a text message, then chances are that you might see the message, but you're still not going to act on it. And yeah, I'm looking from the corner of my eye, and she says, that's such a great idea to have one of those. Yeah, it took me about 10 minutes before I picked the right one. And it's from a gaming shop, believe it or not. So yeah, I'm looking at the text and I'm expressing it wide-eyed, looking at the text. But of course, she's not behind the text. You're behind the camera. Well, I'm in front of the camera, so you're watching me behind it. So believe it or not, I found it at the gaming shop. But getting back to those, what do you really believe? Do you believe it to be true? And what do you do on a daily basis? What does your brain, your mind learn from your actions? Those two things combined, of course, with how you actually feel. So do you have the energy to do things? And do you actually have the time? But well, when you want to do something every day, then you block time, you make time. That tells you a little bit about whether you are going to do it or not. Now, the good news is when you stop doing something, that doesn't mean that you don't want to do it. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it anymore. I believe in the possibility of doing it again and again and again and again. And at some point, you will pick up on it and you will keep doing it. And to give you the best example, when I started recording videos, I think it was like 12 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. It started with a guy called Ilko de Boer. Yes, typically Dutch name, is also typically Dutch guy, looks also very Dutch. And he had these challenges for us, like record a course or record a video like so many days in a row and post it. And of course, back then, we didn't have the phones like now. I mean, like the videos on here, they are amazing. And we just put it down and we talk, and it makes such a difference. So back then we had to use our compact camera, our digital camera. So you had to put it somewhere and then hope that it would be okay. So you would look at yourself, and then it was like, okay, this is what people see. Okay, and I put something on there. Is it visible? Yeah, I think it is. So a whole different ball game. And of course, I quit doing it until, and I think this was back in 2018 or 2019. I think 2018. My friends came over, and I at some point said, you know what? I want to start recording their shows. So I wanted to learn more about videos and all that stuff. And then I said, well, if I'm going to do it, then I'm also going to start blogging about it. So vlogging about it, which led to some people thinking that I was a travel vlogger. which to a certain degree is true. But the thing that I wanted to do the most was expressing where I was and what life was like for me and how I could teach other people to speak up. Now, nowadays, thank you, she says, you have a very good knowledge of video and recording. Well, it didn't come from one day to the other. It's about doing it over and over and over again. And like I said, Cheeky Joe's expertise is obviously the whole editing, as in taking a picture from someone or several pictures, then creating a masterpiece out of it. And she uses different colors. She likes to work with black and white combined with, for instance, blue. But the way, you know, when she writes down certain words or phrases, but also it's that specific moment that she chooses. Like, okay, this is what I want to get across. I love it. I really love it. It goes way beyond, for instance, T-shirt Tuesday, just to get an idea. So all combined, this was about what do you believe when it comes to something you want to start doing every day or what you want to get out there every day. And when you have doubts, can I actually do it? Remember what I told you? I've got this worksheet which goes into negative and positive things. It's very visual. So it has a number of steps what to do in order to go from the negative beliefs to the positive beliefs, including something with smileys and other stuff. So if you want to know more about it, go to ladylexi.com/sign up for change, and you will find it and you will get it. So again, if you do so, you make an effort because you want to start something. And what I want you to think about is, if you sign up, why do you sign up? If you do not sign up, why don't you sign up? What do you actually believe yourself? I would like to hear that from you. So let me know. Thank you for having been here. And again, if you want to know more and you want to learn how to become more positive, then get that worksheet, ladylexi.com/sign up for change.